So in 2006, a trade book appeared on bookshelves that would ultimately have one of the biggest impacts of education of any research volume ever published. So in Dweck's book, Mindset, the New Psychology of Success, she was summarized the key things from research and the nature of different mindsets. And as we know, students with a growth mindset believe that ability grows with experience, but those with a fixed mindset believe that you're either smart or you're not. And it turns out that the implications of these mindsets are absolutely profound. Now, Carol Dweck's work on mindsets has become a high priority for many schools, but I have found that teachers and principals are wondering what it really means for their subject teaching and for math classrooms. So I've been doing a lot of work on that with Carol and with teachers. And I would start by saying that in mathematics education, we suffer as teachers and teacher leaders and principals from the very damaging myth that pervades a lot of countries, which is the idea that being good at math is a gift. Some people are naturally good at math, some people are not. Actually, I had a book in England which I called The Elephant in the Classroom, and I called it that, and I argued that there's a big elephant standing in a lot of math classrooms, and it's the idea that only some kids will ever be good at math. Teachers believe that, parents believe that, students believe it. So what's the reality? Instead of that myth, there's a lot of evidence coming out, very recent evidence, showing the huge plasticity of the brain. The fact that the brain can change and rewire itself in moments and have huge effects. So we know that when learning happens, a synapse fires. It's like an electric current that goes between neurons in the brain. Now, those synapses are like footprints in the sand. So if they're followed repeatedly, they get deeper and deeper and become established. And if they don't, they wash away. So learning creates and strengthens these pathways and synapses. So I share with teachers some of the amazing evidence for brain change, which I'll briefly mention. So one of which is the study of London black cab drivers. You may know that all London black cab drivers have to take a very rigorous test in order to become licensed to drive taxis around central London. And they actually have to learn 25,000 streets and 20,000 landmarks. And at the end of that time, they take a test, which is just simply called the knowledge. Now, it turns out that at the end of that training period, London taxi drivers have a larger hippocampus in their brain. And the hippocampus is the area that specializes in acquiring and using spatial information. When they finish becoming cab drivers, when they retire, that area of the brain shrinks back down. And one of the studies that have shown this most dramatically for me was a study of a 3-week training program where students were working on math and logic, and that training program over 3 weeks changed the structure of their brain. So we have this evidence that the brain can change and rewire itself. And what it tells us is that every child can excel in mathematics in school from elementary up to the end of high school. And that each new learning experience changes your ability, my ability. But we use fixed ability language all the time. We talk about high and low kids, and many schools are structured based upon these notions of fixed ability. How do we get students to develop growth mindsets? Well, it's my contention that schools and teachers and parents treat math learning as a relatively fixed phenomenon. I first want to talk a little about ability grouping. Many people believe in the value of putting children into ability groups. And, it seems to make sense in lots of ways. Students will be more similar in their achievement and teachers can target their work. But we have a wealth of research over many years that shows that ability grouping harms students. And of course, putting students into ability groups gives them a very, very strong fixed mindset message. When I've surveyed over 800 teachers and asked them where they think the biggest message comes from students that math ability is fixed, tracking, ability grouping, setting, whatever it's called, comes out top of that list. But we have all this research that shows what happens when schools are detracked. And one of the most interesting for me, which was published recently, was conducted in the state of New York, where they followed the entire cohorts of students over 6 years. And in the first 3 years, they were in tracked groups, and then in the last 3 years, they were untracked. And what they found was that after that untracking, at the end of it, the students who'd gone through that were in more advanced classes than the students who went through tracks. They achieved more on a range of different measures. And those achievement advantages went across the achievement range from high to low students. And many people worry that high achievers may be held back in mixed achievement groups, but we know that not to be true, because they actually end up doing much better than students in high tracks. Another large-scale study in England, researchers followed 14,000 children through years 4 and 6, comparing those taught in ability groups with those not. And those who weren't in ability groups, again, achieved at significantly higher levels across the range. So that's all I'll say about ability grouping. It's a hard one to shift. It takes brave teachers and administrators to do that. And I really think it's something that we need leadership, particularly school leadership, to help us in that work.